what does it mean to be British? I think that is almost an unanswerable question, unless the answer is somebody who believes in the union. Um, as time has gone on this last decade, I found myself calling myself more and more English rather than British.
Yeah.
And I've done that for many reasons. That's because the four parts of the UK are different. And that's fantastic. We don't have to be all the same. In the referendum 10 years ago in Scotland, 45% of the population voted to leave the Union. So they didn't feel British.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what Britishness is. The government basically says this. I've just Googled what the British government says, what Britishness is. And they say it's democracy, rule of law, liberty, and respect and tolerance. So some things we can agree with: rule of law, democracy. But when we start getting to respect and tolerance, that's just mumbo jumbo,
Yeah.
pink and fluffy, trying to find something that makes us British.
Yeah.
If the question is, what is Englishness? I think that's probably a more valued discussion. I think so. What is Englishness? People struggle to define what Englishness is because the first point is Western Europe and North America. We have slowly over the last 50, 60 years become slowly and slowly more like each other.
Yeah.
So that's not helps because we watch the same TV programs basically. We all speak English now. Our most amazing gift to the world, we gave them our language. We follow the same sports. Let's be honest. England gave the world nearly all its sports.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's why we find it harder and harder to define who we are. If I had to then go beyond that, so what is Englishness to me? Englishness to me is basically little things and some big things. So let's do the big things first. The big things would be rule of law.
Yeah.
And that's underpinned by our sense of fair play. So
Yeah.
the rule of law enforces our innate sense of fair play.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're a duke, a lord, the king. Everybody has to follow the law. You cannot use your power, your influence to tyrannize somebody else. I'm sure that goes on. Of course it does, because we're not perfect. But we have the rule of law that tries to stop that. And we fail at that sometimes, such as the post office submaster scandal.
Yeah.
We treated those people horrendously and everybody knew what was going on and nobody wanted to tackle it for personal convenience.
Yeah.
So we let ourselves down sometimes. But the fact when that scandal was made into a drama on TV and the whole population saw it, things changed the next day because it went against our sense of fair play.
Yeah.
The next thing is democracy. Democracy in this country, well, democracy across the world is basically an experiment. It's only been going on 100 years. People think we've had democracy forever.
Yeah.
We haven't. It's been 100 years. It's basically been since just after the First World War. So 1918 was when working class men got the right to vote. 10 years later, women got the right to vote.
Yeah.
So it's 100 years, but that's an important 100 years. And you can call it an ideology, but our culture now is hooked onto democracy and we think it's the bee's knees, basically. Whether or not it is or not is a different discussion for another day.
Yeah.
But that's part of Englishness, and you'd say Britishness as well, democracy, that we get to vote in our leaders.
Yeah.
That was part of the reason why we never liked the EU. That was part of the reason why we wanted to leave the EU, because it wasn't democratic enough for us. People we didn't vote in were making laws and decisions that affected us, and we could not get rid of them.
Yeah.
That wasn't democracy.
Yeah.
And then some of the small things, which some people may laugh at, but some of the, I mean, if you've done a lot of traveling around the world, these are little things that jump out at you where you think, oh, we don't do that in England. The first one is queuing.
Yeah.
I know it's a joke. People make, it's in sitcoms, but it's actually very true. You know, I've been around. I remember being stood at a bus station in Israel, in Jerusalem, queuing to buy a bus ticket. And
Yeah.
I left a 6 inch gap between me and the woman in front of me because I didn't want to be right up against her because that's like sexual harassment.
Mm.
And because I left a 6 inch gap, another woman forced herself in and stood in front of me.
Wow. Yeah.
And she didn't think she'd done anything wrong
Yeah.
because, well, that's not a queue. A queue is where there's a gap, you stand in the gap.
Yeah.
But we don't do that here. I
Yeah.
remember when I went skiing in France 20 years ago, queuing up for the ski lifts.
Mm.
Only the English were queuing. Everybody
Yeah.
else was trying to walk to the front of the queue and push in. So
Right.
that goes to our sense of fair play.
Yeah.
That goes to the sense of we need to be orderly. We need to get what we deserve. And when you've
Yeah.
been in line, that means you're next to be served.
Yeah.
And it's also about manners. You know, how many other countries in the world do you bump into? Does somebody bump into you, and then you turn around in an instant and apologize to them for
Yeah.
them bumping into you?
Yeah.
And that's because we have manners, and manners may seem trivial and silly to some people, but what manners is all about is keeping harmony in the tribe.
Yeah.
It's about making sure you don't get to conflict. So
Yeah.
it's all about that social cohesion. Hence why 150 years ago we ruled the world.
Yeah.
Not because of manners, but because we had a cohesive society that was going down the same path.
Yeah.
And the next thing about Englishness, and you could say Britishness as well, about why we find it hard to define it, you only can define those terms when the majority of the country all agree.
Yeah.
Hence why the government have come out with 4 values that are so wishy-washy. You'd have the Maori tribe in New Zealand agreeing with it. You'd have the Kenyan bush people agreeing with those points because they're so vague and nebulous.
Yeah.
But they have to be vague and nebulous now because we're a fractured society. And it's very hard to get us to agree on anything. Hence why we find it very hard to define what Englishness is and what Britishness is, because we're not one people anymore. We're being fragmented into tribes. Did you enjoy that video? I think you did. Come on now, hit that bell, subscribe, comment. Let's build this channel. I need more followers. I need more subscribers. Be part of the journey. See you soon.